Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
So hello and welcome to the Healers Café. And today I have with me Dr. Mark Mincolla. He's a PhD, a nutritional therapist and quantum energy healer who has transformed over 60,000 people's lives in 35 years. You've authored many books and you've been on many different talk shows, namely some of them Dr. Oz, Better TV, ABC, etc., etc. So I'm really thrilled that you've decided to share with our audience a little bit about your journey. So first of all, welcome. And secondly, why don't you share a little bit how you learned to go through your own experience of healing and how that got you on the path of really discovering what it takes to heal.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Manon. It's great to be with you. It's great to meet you. It's great to be on board. So healing to me could be summarized by the present book that I published and the present film that is circulating as well. There's the book and a film that I just released in June. And the book and the film are both entitled The Way of Miracles. And if folks are interested in the book, of course, Amazon has access to the book, The Way of Miracles. And the film is actually accessible by going on thewayofmiracles.com. But the message in the book and in the movie summarize my whole life's direction about healing, in that the book and the movie are all about exciting people, inspiring people to become aware of the fact that once they get over their spiritual identity crisis, they'll find that they're miracle-making people, they're miracle-making beings. They have the potential to make miracles. Miracles aren't these far out things that we don't have access to, that only Mother Teresa can do or anything like that. So miracles are commonplace when we're in the land of the soul. Mm-hmm. So by identifying with our core, our source, and by filtering our life, emanating our life from that place, by flowing from the deeper source of soul from within us, to like I said a minute ago, to overcome our personality crisis, identity crisis. Because I think our identity crisis, I mean, we spend a whole day thinking that we're a person. We spend a whole day thinking that we're a physical being, a material being. We spend a whole day thinking that we're a personality, an ego. We have an identification. We have a name. We have titles. And we think that this whole form-based reality is what our life is all about. It's a distraction, and it's what keeps us from being miracle makers. Mm-hmm. So I learned a long time ago that if I were focused on getting to the core of my being and emanating my energy from that place, and if I get distracted and fall off the horse, I got to get back on. So the objective is to dedicate myself to being real, to being soul, to coming from my source, to emanating from my source, to being aware of the fact that I'm pure vibration of consciousness. And that frequency puts me in a zone of potential that has no limits. Mm-hmm. So that I can actually become a remarkable healer in my own life to myself, and I can be a lot more healing to whomever I encounter as well. Mm-hmm. So as a practitioner and as a person in general, I feel like I've made the difference in my life by making good on my identity crisis, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because I've seen so many times that in healing, in fact, how we choose to live our life without consciousness is often trying to resolve an identity crisis that we're not aware of. So even when I noticed you said here, and it just resonated a lot, you said subsequently many of the relationships I'd formed throughout my life were unconscious reactions to my wounded child self, rather than the conscious action of my higher self. And you go into I become selfless to the point of debilitation. I was the initiator, caregiver, apologizer. And so many times people going in the healing space, that's sort of their identity role. And they don't see it. And I found in sort of reading a little bit about your story, how there's that disassociation, as in there's this life that continues with the have tos and shoulds and the routine as your body is clearly crying out messages. And then there's like a turnaround where you start to connect to what you call superconscious. I wonder if you could expand a little bit on that, because I think that's, I very much relate to that. And I think it's a very interesting process.
I think, first of all, the universe comes into play here in this conversation. Where is the universe? What is the universe? Number one, it's not a place. The universe is not a galaxy. It's not a planet. It's not a specific environment that we can actually take a rocket ship to or anything like that. The universe is pure consciousness. We are the universe. We don't have consciousness. We are consciousness. So I think those standards are really important to ground ourselves off of, for starters, and to be aware of the fact that we are pure awareness. And to be aware of our pure awareness is to activate our universal connection, our super consciousness. So to me, super consciousness, we have conscious mind states that are conscious. Our conscious mind produces 2,000 bits of information per second. It can process 2,000 bits of information per second. Your unconscious mind can produce 400 billion. So the deeper down we go, the more reach we have, the more outreach we have, the more potential, greater our potential. Superconscious is when we take our pure consciousness and blend it in the sea of universal consciousness. So the collective divine consciousness that is the universe, that's the identification point of the universe. When we connect with that, when our awareness merges with that universal consciousness, that's when we become super conscious. That's when we have no limitations at all, in my opinion. There are no limits whatsoever. So I think that's how we make that work. That's how we make that happen.
But so the process of healing itself, in your experience, then you had gone to see a whole bunch of therapists of all different types of training, and then how did this connection to superconscious take place, so that you understood in a profound way that you are healing energy? I mean, in a sense, I'm simplifying it, but it's like we can do things to ourselves, for ourselves, but in and of ourselves, we are miracle potentiated. I mean, it is about, can you explain that? How would you explain this phenomenon?
Yeah, well, in my case, we were the producer who I work with on the film, and I were mapping out the film that we were about to produce, The Way of Miracles. We were mapping out the film. We were working hard on it. And as part of the film, we were going to interview 6 patients that had miracle stories: end-stage cancer, brain tumors, blah, blah, blah. People that had 100% recoveries, miraculous recoveries. And we were going to detail the proceedings, how that all happened. We thought that'd make a great film, great, interesting stories that bring people hope, to think that you're never down and out. There's always hope. There's always a possibility to heal, to have a miracle healing. So we were thrilled to produce a film like that. We were mapping the whole thing out, and smack dab in the middle of it, I got bit by a Lyme tick. And I didn't just get bit by any tick. I got bit by the worst tick in history. I mean, I got bit by a tick that basically was a neurobiological nightmare. So, I mean, I lost my balance. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. I was literally just shut down, neurologically shut down. I mean, I was paralyzed. It was a mess. I was like that for the better part of 2.5 weeks. But at one point, I'd fallen on the bathroom floor because I couldn't walk. Like I said, I fell on the bathroom floor. I hit my head on the tile floor, hard tile floor. was there for 14 and a half hours. And I was drinking cleaning liquids, solvents that were bathroom cleaners and things like that, because I knocked them over when I fell and I couldn't move. So I was soaking them in, breathing them in, drinking them down. It was a nightmare. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. But during that 14 hours, I confronted myself because I was brought to a very deep, dark place. And I had to get in touch with something very big. I had to get in touch with something that was as big as I could get in touch with, because the place I was in was huge. It was huge, hugely overwhelming. It was a tidal wave, and I needed to be able to surf the tidal wave. So I talked to my soul with my mortal self. I had a conversation between my mortal self and my soul. And I asked, do I want to live? If I have to live without a body, if I have to be paralyzed in a wheelchair, if I'm quadriplegic, do I want to live? Do I want to present this book and film? Do I want to do what I plan on doing? Will I still do it from a wheelchair? Do I care to live anyway? And I didn't have an answer. So about 25, 30 minutes goes by. And out of the blue, unexpectedly, I started screaming for help as loud as I could. Help, 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 help. Hoping somebody would hear me. But I noticed that showed me that I wanted to live. I didn't know I wanted to live until I started screaming for help. So, but I went through a period where I in that conversation between my mortal self and my immortal self, I became convinced that I had the potential to access limitlessness, that I could actually heal myself, and I could actually make my body come back to normal again, and make my life come back to normal again. I just out of the blue was convinced that I could do that. And I said, this may be crazy, but I'm buying it. I'm buying it. And it started with that seed, that germination of a seed of thought from within my being, my soul. And I started sucking that up, and I started inhaling that, and I started drinking that down as best I could. And I took that into my being, and I said, this is going to change soon, and it's going to change forever, and it's going to actually fit with our film and with our book. And I see the divine nature of this whole process coming around full circle, this big picture, And sure enough, I mean, I spent 2 weeks in hospitals and rehab centers and things like that, and they said, you're not going to walk again. Sorry, dude. That's not true. I mean, I just walked 10 miles last weekend. So the point is, I made it through. I did heal myself, and I did have a remarkable recovery. And the bigger picture was pretty unique and pretty remarkable. And the fact that the universe had me go through what I went through at the time that I did, and under the circumstance that I did, and produce the result that it did, is such a remarkable, miraculous reality that I just think that it was symbiotic with something much bigger than I ever knew about. It's just divine God consciousness that I merged with, and it just made a difference in my life. And I think the message is pretty simple. If you take the beautiful awareness that you are, the beautiful consciousness that you are, and merge it with the divine consciousness that is God consciousness, that is the highest elevation of universal presence, universal isness, universal essence, you can heal anything. You can do anything, and that's what the message is. That's what the Way of Miracles is all about.
Yeah. I resonate with that profoundly. My own experience taught me quite a few things as well in my own journey. And I remember the first time I became aware of it was a glimpse. I was under a very traumatic circumstance, like held at gunpoint, and I had to get out of this situation. And I became aware of this incredible beauty, and the word divine came to me as this divine light and sense of being. And this was when I was quite young. And later in life, when I developed cancer, I had stage 4. I became aware that I should not go ahead with a hysterectomy and all these things that were recommended to me. And it was the same sense of this. It's almost, if I would say, this is here for a reason, but I didn't look at it quite that way. it's more like that's retrospective point of view. It's, it taught me this. But it's like there's a merging in the moment that you just know beyond a doubt that you will heal, that you are healing itself, that it runs through you. I don't know if this makes sense. I've never really
Something, what you just remind me of? You remind me of, do you know what retrocausation is?
No.
It's fascinating. There's a study that was done in Israel. I can't remember the researcher's name right now, but he engaged a study on retrocausation. So in other words, we're used to thinking in terms of things happening in the present tense, obviously, and things happening in the future tense, and things happening in the past tense. Retrocausation, in this study, they proved that people in this group, in this control group, that prayed for people that already existed, events that already took place hundreds of years ago, they could affect the end product of those experiences by praying not ahead, but praying back. So
Wow.
retrocausation studies have proven, you know what they've proven? Here's the bottom line. Here's what they've done. They've proven that quantum mechanics is real. That's what they've done. They've proven quantum mechanics is real. Time doesn't exist. Time is an illusion. Time and space are just total illusions. And that they're only as real as the assigned value of the conscious person that's addressing them, that's thinking about them.
Hi, I'm Dr. Manon Bolliger, and I wanted to take a moment to thank you for watching these podcasts. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Also, feel free to leave comments and like it. This way, more people get to find out about this work and about other choices for health. So I think it's really important that we all share this information. I have a free gift to you. It's a 7-sequence email that has tips for every day, and it's a little insight about how to live your life when it comes to health. And it's very much built on how I managed to overcome stage 4 cancer and what it took. So I would love you to have this, and thank you once again for listening to these podcasts.
But in point of fact, they prove that things that have happened in the future can be affected by you, and things that happened in the past can be equally affected by you, because time doesn't have any biases. I mean, most people say, okay, I believe if you program yourself for positive thoughts about your future, you think positive thoughts, pray hard, visualize, and think great stuff, you probably do great things with your future, Tony Robbins style all the way. But who's thinking about the fact that time is unbiased, if it exists at all, if it even exists? I'd say there is no such thing as time, but if there is, you want to make that argument, fine. It's got to be unbiased. It's not going to say that you can actually move into the future, but you can't move, you can't change the path. That's crazy. That's inconsistent. So these studies indicate that we can change the past by projecting ourselves in those environments and reformatting, reprogramming. And the people in the study, there's like 200 people in the study, and they all found that their lives changed. By changing the past, they changed the sequence of events that led up to the present. And by doing so, they changed the quality of their lives.
Mm-hmm. So are you talking about like a type of reframing, as in you have an experience and then you saw it a certain way, and
ironically, one of the reasons why this took place in Israel, there are a number of people who signed up for this study who are family members of Holocaust victims. So because they had horrible family stories, they had hoped to go back and influence the energetic properties that had already existed in the past, in one context anyway, and to actually help bring that to a new sequence forward to the present tense. And again, there were stories that people told from this study that, like one woman said, my grandmother was always such a dark, negative, such an imprisoned soul. And my mother and father were negatively affected by that. and I was negatively affected by that. And after they did this work, she felt very different, radically different. And she wasn't the only one. There were a number of people that said they felt radically different. Choose two situations. They said they themselves felt radically different, and their parents, in many cases, were parents were still alive and aging, changed radically as well. So again, you can dip into any space you want, and you can bring frequency at any level to any space you want. That's what I'm all about. So I feel like when I say no limitations, I'm not cherry picking limitations here. I'm saying there are none. If you're operating from the level I'm talking about. So I'm like really pleading with the world to awaken unto themselves and to awaken unto the limitless potential of their source, and to tap into the fact that there's a quantum mechanics at work here that dispels the myth of limitation, especially in time and space.
So how would you start? I'm sure your book has all the details, but in a shorter interview to get a flavor of this, where does a person start? Like if people resonate with what you're saying, how do you start? Because you have some of the awareness, but is there a method, a way, a path that
Yes. And at the end of each chapter of my book, I have exercises that help that encourage that process, that assist in that process. One of my absolute favorites is hold on, actually, I'll read it to you.
Great.
But it's the idea that you can here. Stop what you're doing. Tune your attention to each breath. Within each breath, there exists an endless lifetime. Timeless space that is created within every breath creates an infinite space for our undivided presence. That's the beginning of the exercise. Then, hold on. Here it is. Look into the mirror. Ask yourself who you really are. Can you feel your mortal self being observed by your immortal self? Can you feel the connection? If you can, you're witnessing the conscious soul that you are. I think these are beginning places. They're just little introductory doors that open for us. You know, I think that it just enables us to again think about that. Look into the mirror, ask yourself who you really are. Can you feel the mortal self being observed by the immortal self? If you do that, when you feel that, it's essence that you're tapping into. It's just the essence is soul. It's pure consciousness. Can you feel the connection? So that's I think those are little examples that I give along the way that are designed to kind of help you take in that consciousness, manifest that consciousness, I should say, that has the ability to feel the essence, perceive the essence. Because I mean, we could talk about the fact that we're soul. You know, we just did. We have a conversation about that. But we can actually put you in front of the mirror, looking in the center of your own eyes, looking eye to eye, core to core, and feeling the essence of your soul, feeling just pure essence, just energy, pure energy. No personality, no words, no concepts, no interference, no interruption, just pure essence. That puts you in the place that we're talking about. That puts you right there instantaneously. There's no you have nowhere else to go. You're there. You're just right there in that place. So I think those are exercises that are designed to take you right there and just put you in connection, I should say, with your essence, your frequency, your vibration, your soul.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard this repeated by other children too, but I remember as a child doing that, and I thought it was like a type of magic. That's how I felt. I was in a magical space. But in when I've been treating other people, I've had it described this way, where people are feeling as if they're seeing the infinite self, or I don't know if we call it self, but the infinite being, or I guess it's the infinite soul, right? That is that.
How about this? How about this? You're just saying the infinite.
Point final. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how would you? Because a lot of people now are in tremendous fear. Fear for the future, fear for all kinds of, we've been living under a lot of fear, and whether it's, I don't want to get into politics or into biology on that level, but how do you reach people to be able to deal with that? Because we say it's going to be a huge spiritual awakening. This is a consciousness. There's all of, in that reality, people are talking like this is really an awakening. But if you don't know what that means, how would you reach those people?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is eliminate the interruption and eliminate the distraction, eliminate the attention deficit, eliminate the confusion about past or future, and to emphasize now, right now, and to get really good at being in now, to get better and better and better at it until you're actually good at it, and to realize that now is representative of a repetition. Now keeps coming over and over and over. There's not a tomorrow. There's just a repeating now. There isn't tomorrow. There's this constant now renewing itself. So I think when we take it to that level, when we move through that perspective, I think it frees us from the anxiety of the future and the depression of the past. And I think now is all there is. I think, in fact, that's all there really is in the real universe. That's all there is anyway.
Yeah. So the practice of being in the now, because for a moment you're in it, and then the moment you catch your thoughts, they're either in the future or they're rehearsing or re-repeating a past. So you bring yourself back. Are you using sort of the breath and the body as a centering, grounding way of staying present? Or have you come to an understanding of other ways of really being in the present?
We just had a conversation about this recently. I think it's about concentration. I think concentration, number one, is interfered with by distraction. The distraction that interferes with the concentration is more or less a distraction of self-imposed interference, self-imposed negativity. It's kind of like we don't think that we have the ability to fill up the now with consciousnness. We're more inclined to have distracted consciousness, scattered thoughts. The way I look at it is I always say that we're reactive instead of proactive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we're reactive, we scattered bushels of thoughts to pull us out of that flow. I think if you make it a point to become consciously proactive, super consciously proactive, it changes everything. I think, we tend to be 80 to 90% reactive. I think we need to be 80 to 90% proactive, not reactive. Because again, you start off, you're asking how do we get there? I think the first thing we do is stop interfering with it. You're automatically going to go there. You can't help but go there. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go anywhere. You're going to end up there if you if you don't ruin it. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason we ruin it is because we become too obsessively reactive, especially emotionally. We're very emotionally reactive. What's so-and-so going to say if I do this? What's so-and-so going to say if I do that? Reactive. Like you said a minute ago, reacting about the virus, reacting about the planet we're living on, reactive. It's terrible. There's no proactivity. I say you take charge, you empower yourself by being proactive in a conscious way. and a positive consciousness. So positive conscious, proactive, as opposed to negative unconscious, reactive. It's a choice. It's a choice.
The choice. That's
it's a choice. It's a choice, and you can cultivate that. You know, it's like, you know what I always say. Everybody's cultivating all the time. Everybody's cultivating all the time. You're always cultivating something. You're always cultivating something. Never fails. So you can be cultivating positive, negative. You can be cultivating reactive, proactive. You can be cultivating at any level. So I say most certainly you're ultimately always cultivating something. Always. There's never a moment where you're not cultivating. So my question to you is, are you cultivating unconsciously, out of control? Look out, be careful there. You better get, you know, it's like driving a car without having any awareness, like being half asleep behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Not a good thing, not a good thing. So you want to be consciously, positively, proactive, not like I said a minute, not unconsciously, negatively reactive.
Right. Yeah.
That's a choice. It is a choice. And that could be, you know, you're like I said, you're cultivating one or the other. And if you're unconsciously cultivating the negative, you're gonna have a deep hole you're gonna be in. You're gonna find yourself in a really deep, dark hole. So you need to be aware of the fact that you're cultivating at all times. Just know what you're building, know what you're creating, know what you're constructing, what you're birthing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really a deep principle, is the idea that we have a choice. and we're not really educated to believe that we actually have choice.
But not only that, I said we're not inclined to believe we deserve to have a choice.
Yes, that's right.
I always say that the only mortal sin there is, in my mind, is self-contempt.
Right. Yeah.
That starts the process of conscious living. You can't be a conscious liver if you're stuck in self-contempt. That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, our time is coming short. There's another question I had from, I'm just going to quote from your book here. So you say, everything we think, say, and do results either as karma, and then in brackets, negative consequences of our actions, or as moksha, liberation from suffering. Can you comment further on that?
This is perfectly aligned with what we just said. If you're reacting negatively, you're going to produce karma. If you're proactive consciously, you're going to produce moksha. So karma is the cumulative result of a lot of disempowered decision-making and negative unconscious resulting. Negative unconscious results, I should say. So negative unconscious results are going to produce, like if I say I'm going to just keep eating sugar, I know I shouldn't eat sugar, but the heck with it, I'm just going to eat sugar. I'm going to have rotten teeth when I go to the dentist. So the karma is right there. I'm choosing the wrong decision, and I'm creating karma for myself. It's going to create pain and suffering. Or I could say, look, I'm going to be disciplined. I'm not going to eat the sugar anymore. I'm going to eat more fruit now. And I won't suffer the same outcome. I'll have a much healthier outcome. So by doing that repeatedly and becoming good at that, I become more inclined to not be ruled by my karma, not to accumulate a karma, but to accumulate more dharma, positive stuff, more dharma. And the more dharma I accumulate from the right decisions, right choices, what the Buddhists call right living. I like that term, right living. So if you engage in right living, you end up with more dharma, which leads you to liberation of moksha.
Okay, and one more question for you. You have a muscle, I've forgotten the way it's not muscle testing, but it's your own way of doing this. Can you? EMT. So it's EMT. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's a way of people to connect what their body's actually saying towards whatever it is, a supplement, a vitamin, a food, a way of sort of checking in if it resonates.
You know what's really neat about it it actually fits into the conversation as well, because it helps us to tap into the conscious truth, so to speak. So we can estimate whether this should happen or that should happen. Should I eat wheat? Should I not eat wheat? Whatever the case may be. I think when we actually muscle test it, your field, your biofield is telling your truth for you. Your biofield is explaining that, is dialoguing with you, saying that wheat's not good or sugar's not good or whatever the case may be. You can test anything. And I think in the testing process, you're actually validating your higher consciousness. Your consciousness comes up, you say, I don't, my higher consciousness, I shouldn't eat the sugar, but let's test it. Well, I really shouldn't, that's right. So it validates the process.
Yeah, and I think too, it brings you into an active presence by checking. You're checking this.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, so no, that's I think that's another very good tool. All right, so any last words that you would like to about your movie? I didn't realize it's out already.
Yes, it just released on June 26th, I believe.
Okay.
So if people are interested in the film, they can actually go to the website, thewayofmiracles.com. Thewayofmiracles.com. Pretty simple. And the book is thewayofmiracles.com. You can contact Amazon. Simple. Okay. It's in a lot of the chains too. It's in the chain bookstores. But my advice is this. My words of wisdom would be this. Go to the nearest mirror. Look in the core of your eyes and feel the essence of your soul. And start renewing your connection with yourself with a newfound thought that you are eternal, that you're peace, you're light, you're love, you have no limitations, you're a magnificent human being. And I think it's just important to encourage people, to inspire people, to tap into it and to feel it and to grow it and to grow a love relationship with it more and more every day.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for spending time with us.
Dr. Mann, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon. For more information, go to drmanonbolliger.com.